Hey everybody, Steven here. Today checking out a product I wasn't sure I was going to do a video on just because I know there's going to be a lot on YouTube here, but this is the Govee Immersion. So I've done videos on a couple of their different products. I have the table lamp right over here, and then I have my RGB strip around my desk here, and that actually kind of just illuminates the 3D wall panels that I have up. Love Govee, their products. The app is really easy to use. I'll make sure that there are links for those videos as well if you want to check those ones out. This one though, very interesting. It's meant for behind the TV, and then it actually has a sensor so that it will try to mimic colors that are on the TV and make it more of an ambient lighting type situation with that. So you just feel a little bit more, like the name suggests, immersed with whatever content you're consuming with this. So up here it says Govee RGBIC, TV backlighting, ambient lighting. This works with Alexa, Google, and then their app, and then it has Bluetooth with it. So let's get this thing unboxed. And the big thing here, this is designed for 55 to 65 inch TVs. My downstairs TV, the one I'm gonna actually put this on, it's 75 inches. So I'm hoping this will still do a good job. I'm gonna bring it in a little bit tighter, and it's also above the fireplace. And so the wall doesn't extend all the way out. It's kind of like boxed in. So hopefully it still makes it glow with that, but it is a tight fit. My TV is kind of like edge to edge on that wall. So let's see what we got here. We have one of these strips here. Let's see, and these should have the good like insulation on them. Which, let's see, USB Type-C plug right here, and then yeah. So you can see if the camera will actually pick this up. So that, ooh, maybe not. There we go. So that is sealed in there. And I kind of wish these were like that, actually. I originally thought I may go with these, but it was one of those things where I'm gonna need multiple of these, and I don't know if it'll actually connect like that. But that's that right there. And then let's see, user manual, and then just a little pamphlet on how to actually stick these to this if you needed to. So it does look like it has clips if you need to do that, which is awesome. Choose a dry surface. Warm the tape with hair dryer when it's below, okay, a certain temperature. User manual. I do want to check out one thing with this. I don't know if they'll give you specs on this. Kinda. Input 110 volts to 240 volts. Power supply is a 12 volt adapter. Length 2.3 feet on the left and right side, and then 3.94 feet on the top and bottom, right? So the lighting color here is the RGBIC. Control method is Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. They don't tell you the lumens with this, which is one of the things I was hoping I would actually find out for everybody. 12-month limited warranty. And then, yeah, it'll just click into a different language. Kind of bummed about the fact that it doesn't say that. So, let's see what else we got in the box. This is foam pads if we need them. So we have that. This should be the sensor. And so this is how it's actually going to pick up on whatever colors you have here. Looks like we got a little sticker peel right there. Let's see if we can get that off. Let's see. Maybe. That's it right there. On the bottom we have the 3M tape, and then USB plug-in here. Cord looks like it's going to be a decent length. I guess that's the other thing I have to think about with my TV being larger is that may be a tight fit with this. It should be okay. I may end up putting it on the bottom. Also, my TV is tilted forward, so it may be one of those things. I may need to do that anyways. And if I do that, I could still adhere this to this, and the tape should hold it. If not, I have other 3M tape that is really heavy duty. So we have that. Try not to hurt that sensor. And then our power adapter right here. And then we have our clips if we need to actually use these to help keep it on the TV. If we want to use that, we don't have to because it has 3M tape on the back of it. And then the last thing here looks like, ooh, this looks like these buttons. Yeah, so this looks like it's going to be our control here. Okay, so it has to plug into this. All right, so on the bottom of this, if that will pick that up, there we go. You can see the USB input and then the USB or the USB type C input. So you have two, you have A and C there. And then we have the 3M tape on the bottom. And then on the other side, we're going to see our plug-in here. On the top, it looks like we have power. Looks like it's a color cycle option. If that's what that is, and then it looks like a lighting. So if we can change the color, and then you can change either the effect of the lighting or the brightness of the lighting. So that's going to be right there, if you can see that. So I'll get to toy around with this. The next part of this is actually me just getting this set up. So I'll do a time-lapse video, but I'll actually have to use my phone just because with this, it ends up taking up so much footage to do this. So I'll use my iPhone to do that, and then I'll talk about the process. And really what everybody wants to know and look at is, how does it work with the TV? How well does it look when watching content? And then hopefully I can bring down my son's Xbox Series X, maybe play a little bit of games and showcase that as well. Because I do think that's one of the cool things that I do want to get out of this. Because if this works downstairs, I'm going to get another one for upstairs in the game room so that we can use that on the TV when we're gaming in there as well. So let's go ahead and jump over now, though, to me getting this thing set up. And then we're just going to showcase footage of me watching TV, playing video games, and talking about the different things that I've noticed with this in terms of the good and potentially the bad with this product as well. So let's go ahead and cut over now to that. All right, setup was pretty easy. It took about 10 to 15 minutes, a little bit harder because I have this 75-inch TV mounted above the fireplace, so I needed the step ladder here. Originally put the sensor up top, realized that wasn't going to work, so I actually have mine on the bottom. But the material that they actually used to have this stick to the back of the TV seems pretty solid. Once I was all lined up, then you have to plug this in, you have to set up the app. Had a little bit of difficulty there that I'll talk about here in a minute, but this is what it looks like on the back of the TV. It actually fits pretty well for a 75-inch TV, so I'm happy with how this turned out. Now the orange squares, the foam squares, I wasn't quite sure what those were when I was unboxing this, but this is actually how you try and get the sensor to look at the points that you want this to map out for replicating the color via the app. So that sensor is a camera, and essentially you line this on the TV. So when you actually pull that up, you can see those foam squares and then map out, because it literally has these little kind of points that you drag along this. You can actually then map that to these squares, and that's where it's going to try to replicate this color. It's just easier to actually see those. You don't necessarily have to do that, but based off the angle of the camera, it is just easier to actually see that. And so this is going to be what that looks like. So I ended up setting this up a couple different times, and the problems that I initially had with this is it wouldn't connect. So I actually had to completely unplug everything and let it sit for a second, plug it back in, and then that actually allowed it to connect. It was saying there was a problem with the Wi-Fi and it couldn't find this. So if you do run into that problem, that may help you with this. Moving on though, let's look at the video and the color sampling here. This is all with full saturation. And these are cool videos on YouTube that I'll have linked in the description, where they're actually just explaining how things may work or how things do work. It has great color with the animation, so I figured this was going to be a good representation to show what this may look like with trying to actually replicate the colors. All is smooth. The way it does it, it smooths out all of those colors, where if you do part, it's actually breaking this down into different sections. So this will be part. And then you'll notice in certain scenes towards the corners, those colors are a little bit different with this. So it does give you a little bit more variability, but it doesn't look as smooth as when you do all. So that is something to take note of. So I think this looks really, really good. It actually looks really good too when you're playing video games. And this is where you can see towards the middle split there, right there, where it's showcasing different colors. But I go back and forth. It just depends on the content that I'm watching, that I may have one versus another. But you can see at the bottom there also where we're seeing those differences in the colors. And it also depends on how you want this to be and whether or not you want this to look smooth. So going back to the all now, same scene where it's split, you notice that it doesn't do that change where one side would be blue and one side would be like red and yellow. So this is going to smooth out the color across the whole thing, where the other one can break it up. So that is something to be mindful. It can also tie to sound with this. So if you do turn that on, it'll actually, whatever sound is coming out of the speakers, it's going to actually make these colors jump and pop more. And if you notice there was a slider for softness, so you can make these jumps with this really hard or really soft. That is completely up to you. And the fact that it's scalable is pretty awesome. And that was with all turned on. This is going to be with part turned on. So this looks really cool in my opinion when you have these different colors on here now jumping. And once again, this goes back to what content are you consuming? How do you want this to look? You can adjust these things to kind of match the experience that you're wanting to have with this. Next, I had to take a still of this because there's a lot going on under the color tab. So you can treat this as a gradient or not, but essentially for the segmented light here, you can choose each of these and then change the color to your liking. You can do it like I did here, where I have a certain strip. Essentially, I have 4 that are going to be yellow, and then I have, I think, like 6 or 7 that are going to be green, and then 4 that are going to be purple. It's completely up to you with this. There's a lot that you can tweak with this, so just adding more to that customization that you can actually do here, which is really cool. Now, something to take note of is I just turned the gradient off. So there's a little bit harder stop to the colors, where if you turn on the gradient, it actually tries to blend those together. So it looks a little bit different when you do that. So unfortunately, I didn't realize the camera was trying to zoom in on my finger here, but essentially I'm changing this to another color. You see the colors at the bottom, you can tweak these. You even have a color wheel if you wanted to choose like a very, very specific color and you couldn't find it. So you can save your colors to this, so that way you can actually have quick access to them. Turning on the gradient here, so I wanted something where you could see like, okay, those are a little bit more blended together, where they're trying to transition from the one color to the other color. So we have blue transitioning over to orange, and you can see that it kind of turns purple there for a second before it moves over, versus if I don't have that, where you'll see that there's a clear stop. And I'm actually cycling through this right now. So if you actually look, you'll see it where it's going from the blue over to the orange, and you'll see that kind of shifting. That's actually me turning this on and off. Next, we have music, which I'm not doing these in order. This is actually the first tab here, and I actually had to get a screen grab because it was hard to see on camera, but this you can change. You have energetic, rhythm, spectrum, rolling. You can change the sensitivity to that. You can have it so that it's actually trying to hear things off of your phone or the sensor itself. You can change the colors that it's actually going to use. And again, you can actually set it to my colors if you start to create your own kind of color scheme with this. You can also change this from dynamic to calm, and I actually have this as calm right now. So if it's dynamic, it may try to actually jump and pop a little bit more, but hopefully this gives you an idea of just some of the stuff that you can do with the sound here. I mean, obviously if you're playing music, you're having a party or something like that, this works really, really well. We actually used this for a Halloween party that we had, and it depends on the amount of volume. So right now you're only seeing the corner kind of pop up. That's because there wasn't enough volume coming out of this. So certain things, it's like the sensitivity is there, but if the volume's low, it's just not going to pick up on it. So you're going to have to turn that pretty loud in order to actually have a response with this. And that just depends on what it is. Most of these work pretty well, but I was pretty impressed with this as well. And like I said, it works great for parties. Moving back to video though, you actually have a game mode with that. What I was showing was just the movie mode. So this is my son playing some video games. He's playing Modern Warfare here on the Xbox Series X. And with this, there was a delay with the TV. So he wanted me to make sure that everybody knows was struggling to play with this. This isn't how he normally plays because he died really, really quick on all of these. It seemed like there was a delay between the controller and the TV. I don't know if it's because it's a bigger TV, but also I assume the response time here is pretty bad with this TV. But you can see in terms of just how it looks, like it definitely creates that immersion here. And all of the things that you can do in the movie mode, you can do with this one. So you can have this as full. This one was partial, but you could actually switch it over to full if you wanted to, or all is what they call it, which I do right here. You can change it over to all. You could do part. I noticed with video games, it seemed like it's probably going to depend on what the game is, but part seems to do a little bit better than the all. But like I said, I think it just depends on what it is. With this though, you can also turn on the sound effects. So if it's listening to that, you can actually adjust this so it's going to mimic sound. So if it's a game that has a lot of sound dependent parts to it, that may be something that you want to do. This one is reacting to the sound of obviously him shooting his weapons, but I thought this played pretty well. I'm very interested in getting this on the upstairs TV, which my son typically plays on, and seeing how it does up there. It's a smaller TV and the response time it seems to be better than this one. Yeah, it felt almost laggy to him is the way he was describing it. So we changed up the game, played a little bit of Minecraft, although I think he didn't know what to do. He was just like jumping around the map. I was thinking like, play the game for a second. He's literally just jumping around. But I switched this up just to kind of showcase what it looks like when we have some of the different settings here, part, all, and then if you do have this, so it's reacting to the sound with this. With certain things, this specifically showcases it, right? So you have green in the bottom, which it starts trying to mimic some of that, but then gray up top. And if it's actually trying to pick that up, it's not going to show you certain colors like those grays, which isn't even a color, right? It's just a shade of black. But it's not going to show certain things. So it's trying to create something that it thinks is going to not necessarily mimic that, but like fill that space a little bit. So if you're watching, we watched Dune, for instance, and actually turned this on. And I noticed with that, like it's not representing those colors. That's a pretty dark movie in terms of the color palette. So it's just throwing in reds and yellows and things like that. Some things that are close to it, but they're really not representing what's on screen. And the last two things here, you have a DIY mode if you want to create your own lighting effects, and then you actually have some scenes here, which I'm just going to showcase. I'm not really going to talk about. What I'm going to talk about are the things that I like and don't like about this. I think in terms of the kind of immersion, in a sense that it's making this feel a little bit more alive when you are consuming content, is pretty awesome. It also depends on what that is. I think if you have something that is very colorful, this makes a ton of sense. If you're playing video games, it's pretty awesome. I think that's kind of the big draw here. If you do the sound stuff and you have parties, that can be another thing where it could be of interest to you. The scenes I'm probably not really going to use with this. It's really just, I want the kind of color here in terms of the screen sampling, and then I want the sound. That's the main draw for me personally. The other stuff, not that big of a deal for me personally, but the things I've noticed in terms of a downside, the not being able to connect this when I initially actually had this set up was pretty frustrating. And once I figured it out, I was like, okay, awesome, we're done. But I noticed it's happened a couple more times. So it seems like every 2 weeks, it's like I run into this problem again. I got to unplug everything. And it's essentially asking me to set up the camera again, as if it's not registered, even though I've already done that. Everything else with this has been great. I would say that's the big downside that I've run into, and it's frustrating because the app, I've mentioned this with my other videos that I've covered reviewing Govee products, is really awesome. I really like the app, but this is making me not like it as much because it seems like I shouldn't have to do this multiple times. But I don't know if that's something that they can fix via an update or what, but it's just getting to the point where if it keeps happening, I don't know how often I would use this. Now, my hope here is that I'm going to actually get another one of these because I do want to put one upstairs for my son, like I mentioned. And I want to see if maybe that helps it, because I think the problem may be is that this doesn't have a good enough signal from my Wi-Fi router. So I don't know if the signal, we should have it. We have a mesh Wi-Fi system in here. It should be plenty, but I don't know if maybe because it's trying to run through that it's created an issue. And then this system too, my Wi-Fi mesh system from Cox, it sets the 5.0 or the 2.4 gigahertz with it. It has to have the 2.4, which is frustrating because then it's like, well, how do I get around that? Because the software with Cox doesn't let me actually choose that. So I have no idea. So luckily, like I said, unplugging it and plugging it back in did help, but
if I have to do that every couple weeks downstairs, that's going to be a deal breaker for me personally. I don't know if I would use it anymore downstairs. I might move it to another TV, but I'm going to get that other one. I'm going to try it on the TV upstairs for my son, and hopefully that lets me know if that is my issue or not. And that's not something that I think everybody's going to run into, mind you. It just maybe a couple of you end up running into that. And if you do, unplug it, wait 20-30 seconds, and then plug it in again. If it doesn't, unplug everything from the module, right? Then slowly plug it all back in and then see if that works. But that's going to be it for this one. If that problem wasn't there, this is a huge plus. I mean, this thing is awesome, in my opinion, for what it can do. And the main draw is you do want that immersion. You want that screen sampling with this. And when it does perform, it performs pretty well. I hope in the future, maybe there's some iterations where it does better color sampling. That would be awesome. But for what it's doing right now, it's still pretty cool. So that's going to be it for this one, everybody. I will have a link for this in the description. If you have more questions on this, let me know in the comment section. That way I can answer that for you there. If you like the video, hit the like button for me. If you want to continue to follow along with all my content, hit the subscribe button for me. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.